Hey, Russ Rogers here from the 17 Law Studio, and today we're going to talk about the law of the hill to die on. So, this is a typical conversation we used to have in our house. I would say, "Hey, where do you want to go for dinner?" And Tracy would say, "I don't care. Where you want to go?" And I would say, "Well, how about Chick Fil A?" And she would say, "Oh, I'm tired of Chick Fil A." And I'd say, "Oh, how about we go to Longhorn? Oh, that place smells funny." And I might say, "Well, how about we go to that new Italian place down on the river, or where we could eat dinner?" And she would say, "I don't care for Italian. How about?" And you just pick. I don't really care. And and that would drive me crazy because I really didn't care, and I knew she did. And early on in our marriage, sometimes we would get a little upset at each other, and now we do it, and we actually laugh about it. So, how many of those conversations have you had? It's almost a humorous Abbot-and-Costello routine in our family. Now I'll start naming every restaurant my wife hates until we finally agree on something, and we're typically laughing about it now. But 20 years ago, it would get heated. We'd be arguing about something as trivial as a dinner location. Well, a wise man once said, "You should ask your spouse, 'Hey, guess where we're going to dinner?' And whatever place they say, go there." All right. So here's the truth on this game. I really don't care I don't care where we eat dinner. Seriously, as long as I'm with Tracy, I do not care. And where we eat dinner is not a hill I'm willing to die on. I'm not letting my children go to a keg party, so that's a hill I'm willing to die on. I don't want to go in debt up to my eyeballs, so that's a hill I'm willing to die on. Well, a while back, I found myself in a hotel room at midnight. A man I knew had walked out on his wife, checked into a room, and he called me asking what to do next. He was furious, livid, and she was livid. And it was obvious things had gotten completely out of hand because he was sitting in a hotel room just down the road from a perfectly good house where he and his wife and child, where his wife and child were. Well, this spitting match grew out of what should have been a really small issue, but it consumed both of them. And as the night wore on, I sat there listening to him at the Holiday Inn Express as he enthusiastically tried to convince me that don't you see, I'm the one who's right. She's the one that's crazy. And I can honestly say that most of the time a marriage is in trouble, they get in front of me, both spouses are blaming each other. I get that. So I'm addressing arguing in another show. So I'll not go into detail with that. But my main focus here is what I always ask couples who are at their wits' end. Is this a hill you're willing to die on? See, during the heat of the battle, no one ever plays out in their head what this will look like at the end if they keep this up. Part of what I do is try to help them play it out so they'll know what this looks like in 24 hours from now, a week from now, a year from now, and if they decide this is a hill they're willing to die on. And most things won't matter 5 days from now. And if it doesn't matter 5 days from now, well, it certainly doesn't matter now. And heck, most things won't matter 5 hours from now, or probably even 5 minutes from now. Well, during the heat of the argument, everyone is willing to die on that hill. Once emotions level out, common sense can prevail. There is typically an opening for reasonable thinking. In this case, like going to the hotel room was actually a good thing because both of them together with those high emotions were feeding a fire, a frenzy there that just it was going to be destructive. Well, my friend's situation was so out of hand that I decided to share some future thoughts with him. So if you decide this is worth it, then what you're saying is this thing that y'all are arguing about, you're okay with having your children every other Christmas. You are saying that whatever got you sideways is worth someone else marrying your wife and your daughter calling him daddy. You're saying is what you're okay with dragging your kids through an emotional trauma of divorce over this issue. You're saying that you're willing to shake up your entire family, call the in laws, tell your friends, start dating again, babysit so your wife can go on dates with other men, and all the extra money you have to put in the bank now is going to support two mortgages and two electric bills. And since many folks had their parents go through this, they don't want to repeat that if they can keep from it. So what I do with people is I want to do with you is put all this in perspective. So far, the dozens of times I had to do that or have that conversation, no one was willing to die on that hill. And believe it or not, this includes the times where infidelity was involved. Let me share this quick story. I once had to tackle a stressful work situation with a colleague who was a colonel in the Marines. And since he was in charge, I asked him, I said, "Man, are you okay? And I want to make sure you're not stressed out too much." And he responded with a laugh and he said, "Oh, heck no, nobody's shooting at me. I'm good." And I've known him for almost 20 years. And to this day, I've never seen him rattle. He's been through so much that the little things don't bother him anymore. And what used to bother him when he was super young doesn't even remotely rattle him because he knows how it all plays out. And many of you, when you stop and think about it, have been through far worse than what you're fussing about. When I'm at the hotel room with someone listening to me carry them through the future like this, they tend to stop focusing on the little things that really don't matter. I want them to get where my friend is, where they're saying, "Oh, heck no, no one's shooting at me, so I'm good. I'm good." Now, I've known situations where both spouses cheated on each other, and neither of them decided it was a hill they were willing to die on. So, the real takeaway is this: most things are not worth dying for. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 means emotions run through the roof, when someone has already checked into a hotel, they are no doubt at a 10. Okay, so here's my question: why did it get to a 10? I mean, I realize a lot of answer to this lies in other chapters of my books and other shows, but on this topic today, it pains me to see folks even make it to a 10. I know you're thinking, "Okay, Russ, what do I do about all this?" Okay, when you see your situation growing from a 1 toward a 10, ask yourself around a 2 or 3 if this is a hill you're willing to die on. And if the answer is no, then you should never allow it to move up the ladder. Ask yourself, is this worth it? Now, I've been married a while, so I can easily see now when situations are headed to a 10 sometimes. And quite honestly, they get to a 10, and I didn't even realize it was about to happen. So I get it. It does happen. I know it sounds so easy. So how do you really keep it from getting to a 10? Well, there's no secret formula, but here are some ideas that may get your creative juices flowing in your situation. First of all, from your experience, most of the time, you probably know when it's headed to a 10, and you know it's probably not worth it. You probably, before you even brought up the situation, you probably knew it was going to go to a 10 or could go. Recognizing that it's coming, so please do not ignore the signs. Understand each other's way of dealing with stress is different. So I may deal with stress different than you. So don't impose your way of dealing with stressful situations on your spouse. So for example, if you prefer to talk through the situation and your spouse prefers to take a break to process, do not keep talking because you'll make the situation worse. You'll want to respect your spouse's need to take a break and to process and think. Just because they're not talking to you doesn't mean they don't care or they're upset or they're going to leave you. It just means they're processing, and that's a good thing. You may think that you can talk your way through this, but you are making it worse almost every time. But on the flip side, if you like to take a break, be patient, listen, and then work out a good time to take a break. Breaks are our friends. Breaks are good things. Of course, I'm thinking a few minutes or a few hours. Never should it last overnight or a few days. If you think you can preach to your spouse, expecting it to help the situation, you live in unicorn world. Here are some news. Here's some news that you won't you don't want to hear, but you need to hear. And I hope you write this down. Here it is. Are you ready? You cannot fix your spouse. Nope. You really can't fix your spouse. In fact, you can't make your spouse do anything. And really, if you think about it, you can't make your kids do anything. Oh, yes, I can make my kids. No, no, no. You can compel your children to do something. You can make their life so miserable that if they don't do something, it's just going to be horrible. But it's almost impossible to make your kids do anything. Well, if you can't fix your spouse, then the only person left to fix is you. If you want your spouse to be nicer, then you need to be nicer. If you want more sex, you need to be sexier. If you want a better relationship, then you start becoming a better part of the relationship. If you want your spouse to stop nagging you, then stop doing the things that make them want to nag. Okay, next on how to keep from dying on heels. Recognize that outside forces may be a factor in this particular situation, such as being tired, because if you're tired, you're not thinking straight, things are worse. Actually, Tracy and I said we're not going to argue or bring up really strong subjects after 10 o'clock at night because we know we're tired and they don't go well. Another one is mourning, grieving. One of your spouse's friends or somebody at work may have passed away. One you may not be feeling well. And depending on how things are going, hormones could be bouncing all over the room for the guy and the girl. And by the way, I'm working on a series to discuss hormones and how they affect your intimacy. So that'll be coming in later, early summer of 2021. Anyway, you could be hungry or hangry. Alcohol may be involved or something else may have happened earlier in the day. So when things like this are a factor, it makes it so easy to go from 0 to 10 in a split second. So keep those in mind. This will also help by saying things like, I love you, I agree, I don't understand, but I love you. And again, I love you, I love you, I love you. Those are the things that help. Okay, here's some excellent advice coming. Now I hope you heard you can't fix your spouse. Here's advice. That was news. This is advice. Sometime in your life when you're at 0 and life is very peaceful, utilize one of those good times, great times, peaceful, fun times to lay the groundwork and the ground rules regarding what to do as things are headed to a 10. Agree on things like, hey, give me space, let me talk. We won't slam doors. We never get in the car and drive away. We'll never scream and yell at each other. We'll never fuss in front of the children. Things like that. Lay those ground rules down. And Rome wasn't built in a day, so all this is not going to happen on the next argument. It'll take some time to implement all these things. And something else to realize is this. You need to have forgiveness and peace before you go to bed. But all the issues don't have to be resolved that day. It's okay to agree, to forgive, and to take it up when you have more time, feel better, you're not as tired, the hormones are better, whatever the case may be. It does not have to be resolved that day, but you need to have peace and forgiveness before you go to bed. Keep in mind that the person you're talking to is the most important person in your life. And if that's the case, it's much easier keeping away from that 10. All this goes hand in hand with the chapter in my marriage book when I talk about, do you want to be right or rich? Always be asking yourself, is this really a hill I'm willing to die on? And I bet the answer is no. Now I'll finish this section or this show with a quote from Dr. James Dobson. This is from Dr. James Dobson. When you consider the many pressures that couples face today, only an ironclad determination will hold them together for a lifetime. Those who go into marriage with a mushy commitment are likely to wobble and fall apart when the hard times come. And as we all know, hard times will come. Okay, be sure to follow me on this show on here and check me out on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. check me out at the17laws.com and be sure to check out the Marriage Commitment Challenge coin. We may not be perfect, but we do a pretty amazing job of helping families.